students. Welcome to the Checkpoint Online Sessions. This is Mr. Charles, and I'll be with you for the fourth lesson of week 6. Please go to your coursebook, page 111, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Let's read together. The extract below is taken from the diary of Anne Frank, who is a 14-year-old Jewish girl whose family and other family were in hiding in the Netherlands during its occupation in the Second World War. She calls her diary Kitty and her father Pim. Margot is her elder sister. She has written a letter to her father complaining about his disapproval of her growing affection to Peter, the teenage boy in the other family, and insisting that she is now independent. Dearest Kitty, last night before dinner I tucked the letter I had written into father's pocket. According to Margot, he read it and was upset for the rest of the evening. I was upstairs washing up. Poor Pim. I might have known what the effect of such an epistle would be. He's so sensitive. I immediately told Peter not to ask questions or say anything anymore. Pim said nothing else to me about the matter. Is he going to? Yours, Anne M. Frank. Dearest Kitty, Father and I had a long talk yesterday afternoon. I cried my eyes out and he cried too. Do you know what he said to me, Kitty? I've received many letters in my lifetime, but none as hurtful as this. You, who had such or so much love from your parents, you whose parents have always been ready to help you, who have always defended you no matter what. You talk of not having to account to us for your actions. You feel you've been wronged and left to your own devices? No, Anne, you've done us a great injustice. No, Anne, we have done nothing to deserve such a reproach. Oh, I failed miserably. This is the worst thing I have ever done in my entire life. I used my tears to show off, to make myself seem important, so he would respect me. I've certainly had my share of happiness, and everything I said about Mother was true. But to accuse Pim, who's so good and who has done everything for me, no, that was too cruel for words. It is good that someone has finally cut me down to size, has broken my pride, because I've been far too smug. Not everything Mistress Anne does is good. Anyone who deliberately causes so much pain to someone they say they love is despicable, the lowest of the low. What I am most ashamed of is the way Father has forgiven me. He said he was going to throw the letter in the stove, and he's being so nice to me now, as if he were the one who had done something wrong. Well, Anne, you still have a lot to learn. It's time you made a beginning, instead of looking down on other people and always blaming them. I've known a lot of sorrow, but who hasn't at my age? I've put on an act, but was hardly even aware of it. I have felt lonely, but never desperate, not like Father, who once ran out into the street with a knife so that he could put an end to it all. I've never gone that far. I should be deeply ashamed of myself, and I am. What's done cannot be undone, but at least you can keep it from happening again. I'd like to start all over again, and that shouldn't be difficult now that I have Peter. With him supporting me, I know I can do it. I'm not alone anymore. I have my books, my writing, and my diary. I'm not all that ugly or that stupid. I have a sunny disposition and I want to develop a good character. Yes, Anne, you knew full well that your letter was unkind and untrue, but you were actually proud of it. I'll take father as my example once again, and I will improve myself. Yours, Anne Frank. Text analysis. Some of the metaphors used, we will explain them. Cut me down to size. As always, try to pause the video now, figure out the meaning or the answer to the questions to follow, and then go back to it. So cut me down in size. Father cut me down in size. He didn't actually saw the girl. He showed her that she's small and significant by his beloved actions. I was putting on an act. What does that mean? She was just pretending. She wasn't actually an actor putting on an act. This is an informal way to say I am acting. So she wasn't really acting in front of the audience. She was just pretending. Sunny disposition. I have a good character and sunny disposition. This means I have cheerful personality. Sunny is always associated with cheerful. Why were there words in the text italicized? What does that mean? Well, italicized words in a printed piece stress the fact that, or the fact of their existence, as if the reader or the logical sequence of events expects something else. For example, it was John who broke the window, not I. Imagine John and someone, let's say Ali, standing in front of their father, and their father is telling Ali that you broke the window. For example, I've seen you, or your mother says it was you. And then Ali says it was John who broke the window, not I. The italicization in spoken word is marked by stress, as you may have noticed me so far in the text. We had 3 italicized words, and we mark them by stressing in the intonation, by marking them with rising intonation. But in the written pieces, or in written pieces like the one we read, this italicization indicates that this is a surprise. This was not supposed to be the logical outcome that the reader was expecting. For example, Anne wrote as if he was the one who done something wrong for her father, that he was feeling guilty, and she italicized he. So our expectation, we know that she did something wrong. She should be feeling ashamed, but her father is feeling wrong, is feeling bad. So this italicization of he is unexpected. That's why it's italicized. Why were there so many exclamation marks? Well, they denote the existence of strong emotions, or shouting when used informally. So when used in everyday colloquial language, when you put an exclamation mark at the end, this means you're shouting. Or capital letters, you're mega shouting. You're shouting even harder or louder. But to denote strong emotions. And sometimes as well, they denote mental disturbance, that the person who's speaking is not really stable mentally. And Anne fits both explanations or interpretations. She does have strong emotions. She has internal struggle with her family and her father and mother, and she has an external struggle, that is the war going on outside their house. So she is experiencing strong sentiments. She is mentally troubled because of the internal inside the house struggle and external outside of the house struggle, that is the war, World War II. Simple sentence structure. A lot of the writer is written in simple sentences or simple sentence structures. And by now, you should be able to tell that when do we use simple structures? As usual, they denote fear or confusion or childlike style, and Anne Frank fits the whole, as she's afraid, she's confused, and she is a child, a 14-year-old child. And in her case, in this case, there are many simple sentence structures to denote that she's talking to herself. So when you're talking to oneself, as in a diary, you use simple structures because you're not trying to impress anyone. This is just for you. That's why you keep it simple. Imagine you had to stay inside the house. You are not to leave today, which is our case for now, more than a month. But imagine that your parents tell you the house is all yours today. Would you be dressed fancy? Would you be dressed in really fancy clothes and put on really good perfume and just lie down? You would just wear your sweatpants, your pajamas, and be so simple. That's what Anne did. She used simple structures because this diary is hers. She's to reflect on it herself only. Adding direct speech within the article, she added the speech of her father word for word, directly or direct speech. She did not go with indirect speech or reported. She did not report her father's words. Why was that? This adds credibility, the word for word. This adds a sense of that this is not reported. I did not interpret this. This is what he said, a word for word. And this adds drama as well, since a new character is dialogued with. If the whole piece is written with one perspective, one point of view, one speech, that is Anne in our case, this would give it less dramatical effect than the introduction of a new character. And two characters give it less dramatical effect than three, and so on and so forth. Because the more characters you have, the more complex relationships there will be. Hence, more drama. But since she's not alone now, she added her father's speech, this increases dramatical effect. Clarifying punctuation. Let's eat grandma and let's eat grandma. What's the difference between the two? Punctuation is important in castrating ambiguity and clarifying real intentions. Castrating means to remove. So it's for removing ambiguity and to clarify your real intentions. For example, from our text, no, Anne, you've done us great injustice. And no, Anne, you've done us great injustice. The comma, that is the punctuation mark, marks a pause. That's what we do in speech when you have, or reading. When you have a comma, you pause for a little bit. When you have a full stop, you pause for a little longer. For the first example, no, comma, Anne, comma, you've done us great injustice, this means that Anne is addressed. Like saying, no, doctor, no, mister, no, father. You put a no, and then comma, and then the name or the occupation. This denotes a pause, and this denotes that this is the person you're speaking to, or the profession you're speaking to. But if you say no, Anne, if the sentence says no, Anne, without a comma, this means Anne is absent. No, Anne is here. No, Anne, you've done us great injustice. This means that the person, or person X, is talking to person Y and telling him, no, it's not Anne's fault. There is no Anne. Anne is absent. You have done us great injustice. This is a completely different attribute. So when you address any name or occupation, profession, make sure to add a comma before the name. For example, thank you, John. It's not thank you, John, without a comma. It's thank you, John. And shall we go, doctor? You see how we're pausing when we see a comma in speech? Why does Anne address herself or the version of herself in the diary as Mistress Anne, not I. This creates another persona, as if Anne is talking to another version of herself. This creates dialogue. As we said, this adds drama to the piece and suggests that she's struggling with two opposing sides. She's able to lecture or punish herself in this way, and hence shows growth. This is often done by people who reflect on their own actions, on their own activities or sayings. Or at the end of the day, you go through whatever you said or whatever you've done that you think is problematic, that you think is controversial, that you think you have hurt someone, and you try to speak to yourself. Let's say my name is John, and I start saying, what you did today, John, was horrible. You shouldn't have done that. And then I go, but I had to. This I was forced to do it. I had no choice. How do you mean you had no choice? It shouldn't really go on that long so you don't have schizophrenia. But reflecting on your own actions is a very healthy thing. And this occurs, or this may occur in literature, for it to create another persona, another character, as if Anne is criticizing herself. You shouldn't have talked to your father this way, Anne. She's creating a new, modified Anne that knows what's right, and she's lecturing the old Anne that did the wrong thing and did not know how to behave. Why does Anne address the diary as Kitty? Well, cats are domestic animals and domestic friends of humans. Since they are considered friendly, this may suggest that she's addressing a confidant, someone that she trusts. Why does Anne end each diary with her signing a full name? Where do you see transcripts signed at the end with the full name of the writer? You see this only with formal documents. The more formal document that is, the more you see formal attributes in it. Formal structuring, formal style, formal content, formal indentation, margins, and then at the end you see signature, and the most formal one would be containing a stamp at the end. She considers her diary to be a formal document. This is a way of adding importance to her writing. What are Anne's feelings towards her mother? Her mother is rarely mentioned in the text, right? She doesn't seem to be sorry for what she said about her mother. She rarely mentions her character and not even name. She calls her mother, capital M, as if she is playing the role of a mother. This suggests a distant relationship between the two. If you call your teacher by his name, this denotes respect first, and second, denotes a close or relatively close relationship between you and your teacher. But if you keep calling them Mr. or Miss, Mr. or Miss the whole time, and you refer to them in your writing as Mr. and Miss, you are not really addressing, let's say, Mr. John. You are addressing the character of a teacher. This denotes a distant relationship, so you're distancing yourself from this figure. This is not Mr. John anymore. This is just a teacher. This is you distancing yourself from this person. What are the differences between the texts of Anne Frank and Nadine Gordimer? Nadine Gordimer's text and Anne Frank's text. Nadine Gordimer's text had external difficulties. She was escaping from war and she was at refuge. She was at a refugee camp. But Anne had internal difficulties, or most of it was internal difficulties, because the background information, we know that she's at war, but we don't know that this is not clearly expressed in her diaries. So the dominant difficulties are internal difficulties. She's learning the appreciation of values and tolerance. The setting of Nadine Gordimer's text is a refugee camp. The setting of Anne Frank's text is an attic in a company. Nadine Gordimer talks about an unidentified persona. She doesn't mention the name of the speaker. But we know that the persona in Anne Frank's text is the writer herself. And we talked about this, that Nadine does this to make the character universal, not person X, or not actually, let's say, Selma or Sarah. It's not Sarah, it's not Nadine, it's X. It's a universal alias character. Nadine sounds more naive in her text. She's talking about simple things. Anne Frank sounds more profound, sounds more sophisticated, sounds more revealed. She's now learning to differentiate between the old Anne and the new Anne. Nadine have escaped the war and she's now at the refugee camp. But in Anne Frank's text, she is still in the midst of war. War is still going on close to them. Now go to page 115. The future will have lost many species of animal. Tigers may be one of them. Let's read together. Hunted for their pelt and bones and losing their habitat and prey. Tiger populations are threatened throughout their natural habitat. In many places, they struggle for survival, with burgeoning human populations competing for similar resources. For over 1,000 years, tigers have been haunted as status symbols for decorative items such as wall and floor coverings, as souvenirs and curios, and for use in traditional Asian medicines. Hunting for sport has probably caused the greatest decline in tiger populations up until the 1930s. In many areas, tigers were also regarded as a pest that needed to be exterminated. Between 1940 and the late 1980s, the greatest threat was loss of habitat due to human population expansion and activities such as logging. In the early 1990s, the trade in tiger bone for traditional medicines became a major threat. Many countries lack the capacity and the resources to properly monitor tiger and prey populations. Policies conducive to ensuring long-term survival are often lacking. Where they do exist, implementation is often ineffective. Difficult vocabulary. Pelt is the skin. Burgeoning is the increasing. Curios, rare antiques. Pest, it's destructive animal or plant that attacks crops and that needs to be taken away. Exterminated, like kill, but it's more forceful. Logging is the cutting of trees. Capacity is the magnitude, is the huge whole effect of. Conducive means helping. If we had to summarize the text in one complex sentence, we would say tigers become or may become extinct because agencies for their protection are unable to put a stop to illegal hunting, and because humans who are setting in increasing numbers in tiger habitats compete with them for land and for food resources. Kind and style of this writing. This has many facts, but it is not just to inform us about the facts. This appeals to us as well, tries to persuade us as readers in joining the cause of saving tigers. How is this done? How do we make an appeal? Page 117. In order to appeal to people so that they support a cause you are defending, you should evoke guilt or pity, as if something terrible will happen if they do not help stop it. If we need for a collective cause, for example, you're raising money for charity in country X, or you're raising money to stop or to help save the environment. You're raising money to help a hurricane aftermath in a certain city. You have to evoke, you have to make people feel guilty and pitiful towards this situation. This is you making an appeal. This kind of persuasive writing differs from an argument, which aims only to make a convincing case, but does not rush the reader for immediate agreement. It doesn't say we need your agreement now and or action. We just trying to convince you to buy this product or convince you to join this party. But it would not say join it now or you will be sorry. This way, nobody will join it. Informative, this kind of persuasive writing is also different from an informative, which only aims to give information without evoking any emotions whatsoever. Informative texts are only to give you, as a reader, information, but persuasive try to convince you to do something, and an appeal convinces you for immediate doing of something. Discursive writing is also different from an appeal because discursive writing presents entertainment and do not rush the reader to adopt any opinion or any side. We're done for today. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and keep up the good work.